doing a fantastic job here in Tyler, Texas as well. And with that said, sir, you may begin.
First, before I get into my presentation, I want to thank Dr. McKinney for believing in me and allowing me to serve under his leadership and sit at his feet and learn about higher education under your leadership. So I appreciate that. Also, want to thank all my senior colleagues. Some have already left. Few are still here, but just learning from them as well and engaging with them on a weekly basis. But certainly my team, I have to shout them out. They're not here today. But Kim Davis in development, Jerome St. Jones in marketing, PR, Evan Jenkins, radio and TV, and Sandra Stokes, alumni affairs, and their teams for the work that they do. Any success that I sometimes get credit for is because of their support, because of their leadership, and their teams as well. I know we do have a lot to learn here from this division. A lot of things we do, sometimes we're not out front. Some of our folks are behind the scenes like him. Don't necessarily get credit, but they're always here doing the work. So just want to shout those folks out as well. And obviously thank the board. Thank you all for your leadership. All right, well, I'll go ahead and get started to the subcommittee chairs, Trustee Wayne Watts, Trustee Frank Williams, President Pro Tempore, Dr. Jerome Williams, President Beatty, and other members of the board. On this committee, we have Trustee Kevin Hall, Trustee Robinson, Trustee Manning, Trustee Tiffany Johnson-Cole, Trustee Richard Ross. We can move to the next slide. So there are no action items today on the agenda for NCA, only informational items. We will talk about record fundraising this year and return on investment. We will talk about the anonymous donation without saying who the anonymous donor was. I'll do my best not to let that slip. Brand engagement associated with that, principal gifts, reunion weekend, homecoming 2021, check presentations, and corporate partners. Next slide, please. So this year we raised $11.3 million in total. Thank you. That is a record for Alabama A&M University in the history, not under Dr. Beatty's leadership, in the history of Alabama A&M University. That is a record by far. We have never exceeded $10 million. We've never hit $10 million. In fact, the last record that was set was last year, which was about $5.2 million, somewhere in there. That was a record for Alabama A&M University last fiscal year. And so to double that this year is nothing short of phenomenal. So I want to thank everyone that had a part in that, everybody in development, everybody across campus, because this work does not just happen in development, but it's, your academic deans, it's career services, it's just throughout the campus. There's a ton of support. Dr. McKinney and his leadership as well, Dr. Vital and the foundation. And so just wanted to shout that out. But that's, we're really proud of that number. Next slide, please. So, return on investment, ROI. When you look at what is invested into the development operation at Alabama A&M, and then you look at the return that comes out of that, the return last fiscal year that closed September 30, actually it exceeds 700%. And so what does that mean? That means for every dollar that you invest in advancement, $8 is returned to Alabama A&M University to support whether it's athletics, academics, student services, you name it. For every $1,000 invested in advancement, $8,000 is returned to Alabama A&M University. And for every $1 million invested in advancement, $8 million is returned to Alabama A&M University. So I didn't want to just put that percentage up there without providing some context so that you see what those numbers really mean in terms of support generated back to the university from the initial seeds of the planet and investment made in investment. Next slide, please. So to put that in further context, when you look at the national average for all master's level institutions, in which Alabama A&M is classified by Carnegie, as it relates to our Carnegie classification as a master's level institution. The national average for master's level institutions is 384%, 384.1% ROI. Again, I just showed you Alabama A&M 700% ROI, and so that says we're far exceeding the national average for institutions in our Carnegie classification as it relates to the fundraising results. Some examples of master's level institutions, just to provide more clarity there. From a PWI standpoint, we're talking about the Citadel, Eastern Kentucky University, Jacksonville State University here in Alabama, Murray State University, Troy here in the state as well, and the University of North Alabama, Xavier of Ohio, Appalachian State, Cal State Fullerton, Cal State LA, and also Cal State Long Beach, all three separate institutions. The College of Charleston, Butler, and several others. There's a long list there. When you look at HBCUs, aside from Alabama A&M being a part of that master's level list, there's Southern University, North Carolina Central, Prairie View A&M, and Grambling, and a few others as well. Just to provide clarity there so you can see the other institution types that are in that category. Next slide, please. So you can barely, if at all, see this slide, but this is the slide that, well, we had this slide and discussed it last meeting during the summer. And so it wasn't a full picture because we had not completed the fiscal year. But if you look, it starts on the left with fiscal year 2000. I won't go through each one. It ends with our last year, fiscal year 21, and the 11.26 million that was raised. And what I want to show you is that, or indicate, is that during the last 10 years, 5 of those 10 years were record fundraising years in the history of Alabama A&M. With the last 2, year 4 and 5, being the last 2 years, the last 2 fiscal years. So I won't go through each slide, but just wanted to put that in context to show you what last year's numbers look like in comparison to every other year, going back to fiscal year 2000. Next slide, please. $2,187,518.75. That was the donation from the anonymous Young Alone. That gift represented the largest individual gift, yes, the largest individual gift in the history of the university. Largest individual gift, make sure I'm saying that right, in the history of the university. If you get past the 2, you see 1875 listed twice. That was very intentional. The donor indicated that as they thought about the amount, first the amount was $1 million. And then they said, well, I can give $2 million. And then they started thinking about it even more, and they said it became really personal to them. And so that's where the 1875 twice came from. So I know it's an odd number, but it's very, there's a point to it. And so they were very intentional about that, and we were excited to get it. We're very excited about that. We can go to the next slide. So we received a ton of exposure, unlike maybe for anything else that we've done on a national level. So all based on this anonymous gift: Black Enterprise Magazine, Diverse Issues in Higher Education, Essence, AO.com, Yahoo News, Bleacher Report, HBCU Game Day, HBCU Digest, and Ebony as well, along with a number of other publications on a national level. So that was something that really propelled us to national attention because of that gift, because it was really historic for HBCUs. Not that it was $2 million, but it was $2 million, and it was a one-time gift, no pledges at all. One-time gift. I actually held the check in my hand. So it's real, and the money has been deposited, just in case you have any questions, at the foundation. But because it came from, number one, it was anonymous. Number two, it was a young alum. And so those two selling points really made the story, giving back to their institution, their HBCU. Next slide, please. So real quickly, I'll talk about a couple of principal gifts that we received. Principal gifts are gifts at $1 million or more. Obviously, we talked about the anonymous donation, and you see Ms. Kim Davis, along with myself, Dr. Guinea, and A.D. Hicks on the left for the check presentation we did for the anonymous donation. And then on the right, we also received a $1 million gift from the Jack Kent Cooke Foundation. Jack Kent Cooke, the late Jack Kent Cooke, former owner of the Washington Redskins, now the Washington National Football Team or something like that. Former owner of the Los Angeles Lakers, owned a couple of other major sports franchises, one in hockey named the LA Kings, and owned a number of other things. Major entrepreneur in the U.S. and in Canada as well. But his foundation made it good to the university. $1 million in scholarships. The way that was being dispersed is half of it, $500,000, will go to endow a scholarship. The other $500,000 will go for current use scholarships, so we'll be able to use it immediately as we need to support our students. And we see Ms. Davis and of course Dr. Guinea in that as well. Next slide.
Dr. Chapter, before you do that, I think there's something else you want to know about what the initial amount that they were contemplating giving to the university and what happened to change that trajectory.
Yeah, what was it? Was it 250 or 500?
I think it started at 250 and then moved to 5.
Yeah, I believe that's right. So that gift, so development is a team effort. I get up here and I talk about it and I talk about my team, but it's a team effort across the campus in a lot of cases. And so Dr. Houdini and also Mr. Gibson, Clay Gibson, before he left, they were instrumental in helping us tell the story, right? And so in telling the story, that amount went from 250 to $1 million because let me go back. So this foundation has been around for years, and they typically award directly to students scholarship support. And they award to students usually that are going to much larger institutions, major national and or international brand. Most of the institutions are not HBCUs, if any, in the past. And so they thought about how they were doing business. They thought about were they really making an impact with the students that they were supporting, because they're supporting the best of the best, right, from around the country. Are they really making an impact, or are these students going to be successful regardless? And so we had conversations. They talked about Alabama A&M. We were able to talk about where our students are coming from and what we have to do with them once they arrive, because as we know, many of our students are not necessarily prepared for college anywhere, let alone Alabama A&M University. And so we were able to, and Dr. Guinea was really able to tell that story of what we do with our students once they get here, and then the product that we turn out once they graduate, once they complete, right? And then what they go on to do to be productive citizens throughout the world. And so when we were able to do that, their heart melted, basically. And so they realized that there are some deeper stories as opposed to just looking at graduation rate, because those are the types of statistics they were looking at, graduation rates, retention rates. But we talk about the challenge at Alabama A&M, and not just A&M, but most of our HBCUs, particularly our public HBCUs, those rates are historically low because we're taking the student, in some cases, shouldn't even be in anybody's college, just to be honest with you, because they were not prepared. And what we're able to do with that student is something special. And so they saw that, they heard that in the conversation, and they increased their gift to $1 million. And so that is truly going to be impactful for us. Next slide, please. So we had alumni reunion weekend, class reunion, as we typically call it, weekend during homecoming. Typically, we have this event during Founders Weekend in May, first weekend of May. We did not have it in 2020 because of the pandemic. We didn't have it in May of 2021 because of the pandemic. And so we hosted both sets of all of those classes representing 2020 and 2021. We hosted them alumni or homecoming weekend. And so we were able to raise $1 million just from the classes that weekend. That is a record at Alabama A&M University. Just to put that in context, because sometimes these numbers may look small or large, just looking at the number. But to put that in context, and Dr. McGinney will verify this, you know, when I came about a year and a half after president, I believe, 18 months or so. And the first class reunion that I remember being a part of, the classes collectively, not just the golden class, all the classes participated, including the golden class, raised about $82,000. $82,000. We had never raised $100,000 in reunion weekend from all classes. And so to raise $1 million is just phenomenal. And that's under the leadership of Sammy Stubbs and Alumni Affairs, in conjunction with Development and Kim Davis, and work they're doing. I believe Trustee Michelle Gaines was there, and you were the mistress of ceremony, if I'm not mistaken, for that event. I hear you did a lovely and fantastic job. And really, and I think she was the key to get us over the hump, to get us to that $1 million.
I think it was Endeavor and I were part of that class, and
Okay.
so we matched a little bit.
Okay.
Let me just say something, because we do have several graduates at the university around the table. And so I just want to tell you what the challenges ahead of you for the golden class. Every year, the golden class is expected to raise more than the previous golden class. So some of your golden classes are a couple of years out, and so you need to begin now to prepare, because by the time your golden class comes around, I think this class did 280 some thousand.
Yes.
So you can see where the numbers are going by the time your classes come around. Don't make me call your names, because you know who you are. I see 1, 2, 3, 4. If I'm not mistaken, did I miss anyone? Good. All those classes are yet to come, so we expect, you know, I would suspect that probably by the time they get probably $500,000 for the golden class. Yeah. Or more. I like that.
Or more.
That was a great work, too, great work.
Next slide, please. So, homecoming 2021, we had 6 check presentations, which is a lot. It was a lot to squeeze in during homecoming. We saw many of you were there. We saw the attendance. There were people everywhere. I'm sure AD Hicks talked about that. 6 check presentations. Top left, I don't know if you can see, Alabama Power, 2 alums represented there, Bertram Oram, and also Ralph Williams of Alabama Power, presenting us with a check of $25,000. And that's on top of everything else that they did this year. When you look at Alabama Power and Southern Company, we're approaching $1 million last fiscal year. In addition to that, Regions Bank, $35,000. And then we got into the 6-figure category after that. The golden class of 1970, $230,502.20. Again, keeping in mind all of the classes 10 years ago, $80,000. Now this one golden class, $230,000. Alpha Kappa Alpha, the Gamma Mu, they created the Gamma Mu Endowed Scholarship. Gamma Mu is the chapter at Alabama A&M University. So this was done by the initiates of the Gamma Mu chapter, now alumni. $118,019.97 presented. And then you have capital. Trustee what? Excuse me. You have capital out the file. Which one is it? Capital. Okay. There's no pen in the minutes, right? Oh, man. So same thing, just like the AKA, same thing with the Gamma Phi alumni of KSI, $132,778.61 there. And then finally, the golden class of 1971, and they endowed a scholarship with theirs, so $280,000. Again, that's a record. In fact, 1970, $230,000 was a record. And then they topped at 71, 280. So I know, Dr. Yagini won't be here next year. If he was, he would be shooting for 300,000 or more.
Or more.
Yeah.
He'll be around.
Definitely be around. Make no mistake about it.
All right, last slide, yes. These are just some of our corporate partners and or donors, not all of them, but some of them that have fairly significant, some major brands that you'll recognize. Uncommon, you may not be aware of them, and CDW also, those you'll hear about them, they're coming. We have some things in the work there, both 6 figures, that are guaranteed, but we haven't done the press for it yet. It's coming. Apple, if you'll remember back in December, we became a part of the Apple Propel Center, which opened us up for other funding and other initiatives and opportunities that will come via College of Ag and College of Engineering for the most part. In addition to that, Renaissance Bank has been a consistent partner over the last 5 years or so. Newport Steel, Turner Construction, Publix, obviously Alabama Power, Microsoft. IBM is another, if you'll recall earlier this year, around the spring, we launched a partnership with them where we are now able to offer IBM branded badges for students and also faculty. And so each week we're getting, or every other week, we're getting emails from IBM and on different training courses at the College of Engineering, specifically, I mean, computer science area. They really gravitated to that and run with that initiative. Toyota, Lockheed, Iberia Bank, EBSCO Industries, Vulcan, Regions has been a tremendous supporter of the university, particularly over the pandemic. Before the pandemic, but certainly they increased their support significantly during the pandemic. Blue Cross Blue Shield, Aerojet Rocketdyne, Wells Fargo, and Boeing, just to name a few. So those are some of our corporate partners. And next slide, last slide. I think that's it. Thank you, it's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed my last 10.5 years. Some of you have been here the entire time, some of you have not. But it's been a pleasure. Any questions at this particular time? Or comments? Good luck.
Nice job.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Appreciate everything that you've done for the university.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Williams.
Thank you, Trustee Watts. We'll go to the last item on our agenda, athletics. Trustee Ball.
Where is the athletic?
He was outside.
No, he was called.
Oh, okay.
All right, he was called.
You want to take up for athletic?
Thanks to the speedy progression of these presentations, we are ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing.
Well, I can give this report on that.
Go ahead, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
I'm sure you'll be quick.
Oh,
Oh, we wrote you off,
I was about to give you a report.
All right.
Give you a report.
We are welcoming
Be you ready, because we're going out of time.
Mr. Brian Hicks to bring the good news.
All right, good afternoon. How you guys doing? Very good, very good. We today we're going to cover a few things, just some updates. We don't have any action items, but committee members, we have co-chair Ms. Michelle Gainey, Mr. Kevin Ball, co-chair Mr. John Hackett, and Mr. Chris Robinson as a committee. Mike, you can flip that. Very good. So today we will cover some COVID-19 updates. We'll review the AMU name, image, and likeness policy, what we have in place, and we'll probably give you some updates where we are right now and the different companies we've looked at. Then we'll go into the men's and women's fall 2021 basketball schedule and game guarantees. And we'll wrap it up with new hires that we've had probably since 2020, right during COVID to now. All right. Whoa. I can't say that.
Do you have a copy of it?
You know what I got? Yeah, I do. I'm gonna put my glasses.
Oh.
Mike, yeah, you can make that.
I mean, you didn't have a copy?
Yes, I do, I got a copy. I just go from here. I go from here.
Put your eyes on.
Okay, so, this year, we require all of our individuals, regardless of the vaccination status, in all public areas of the university, including the Elmore Gymnasium, the cafeteria, everywhere on campus, you had to wear your mask, all of the administrative buildings and the offices. Any person that was exhibiting symptoms of COVID-19 should report the symptoms, on their app. We have, all student athletes have this Concord app that we can identify and let us know where they're at. And this training staff will then contact them over the next stops of what they had to do. And listen to what athletic trainer further instructions. If they came back and they were on symptoms and they couldn't come to practice, they were exempt from all activities from that point forward. So didn't want to alarm no one, didn't want to have anyone else involved. So it's been working really good for us, and it's making student athletes more conscious and aware of them and those around them. So each of the vaccinations were turned in to the athletic trainer, and it was added to a student athlete file. So we have records and copies of all the history of them since we've been in COVID-19. So we can follow up with them. If something would come down later, we'll be able to go back and see what has happened in a period of time, and maybe try to nail down what our contact area might have been. So the vaccinated individuals, they may travel to away games, can participate fully in athletics. They would not have to quarantine through the contact tracing. And the NCAA, obviously, we follow the mandate with them with that. If you're vaccinated, you're free to go if you didn't show any signs and continue to participate in the practice. And for those who were or had wanted to participate or they did participate and they showed symptoms, they had to wear a mask. If they had not been vaccinated, they would have to wear the mask in practice. They may not be allowed in practice. It would just kind of depend on what the situation with coach status for the team. So far, we've been really pretty good as it relates to that and what we're doing. Our team travel, we had a policy that 85% of the team travel had to be for the team to go. And so we watched that through the app, through testing, and through the training office. So Mike did a good job last night. We had a basketball room madness, and I had him last night working DJ booth for me. So here's the updates of our vaccination rate. So you can see those. So our baseball team, 85%. Since this report come out, our numbers are improved. This was from a couple of weeks ago when we went into, when I submitted for the reports, if you guys can have it. Our bowling team now is at 87.5%. The cheer is at 85%. The golf team is at 86%. Softball team is at 87%. Football is at 96%. Soccer is at 100%. Tennis is at 93%. Volleyball is at 100%. Men's basketball, 100%. Women's basketball, 88%. And track, well, cross country is 100%, but track is at 76%. Track, we have not competed yet, and some of those are either being ready to be tested, been tested on one time. This has been updated right now, showing 0, but we do have 3 that's in the queue that be tested, and we'll relook at that before they leave for the Christmas break, and we'll review. And they participated beginning in January. Indoor track, we'll see where we are on that, when we get back and take a look at those who would like to participate in the indoor track. So the policy in itself, unvaccinated or not fully vaccinated, they're tested 3 times a week. Typically Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. The fully vaccinated are still testing them. We're doing that once a month. Obviously, those sports they continue to play and travel, and we still would like to see where we are to make sure that everyone, even though vaccinated, because you've seen those with the vaccination that have vaccinated tested positive, so we still do at the current time. And any symptomatic individual, vaccinated or not, we are tested upon reporting their symptoms. So as soon as they display some form of symptom, they're tested immediately. So that's kind of like where we are. We're so far we encourage our teams and our coaches we want to be 100% vaccinated. So that has not changed. We talked about student athletes, and we've had a few. You can see, I think we have a total of 350 student athletes. So we're looking at 9, 10, a very small percentage of those. And we're still working with them, educating them on every time we can. Okay. This next thing is the new NCAA rule with our AMU name and likeness policy. We want to talk about the philosophy and the resources that we use. Our social athletic director, Mr. Earl Robinson, will bring that to you. Our name, image, and likeness falls up under our compliance department. And so anyone utilizing or would like to utilize this policy must start with Mr. Robinson. Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Higgs. Mr. President, Board of Trustees, good afternoon. Just kind of want to give you some brief information. This particular area has been under study for quite some time with the NCAA. And just recently this year, they decided with a little bit of pressure, a lot of pressure from our student athletes, and some pressure, well, I hate to use the word pressure, but emphasis from our student athletes and some emphasis from some other members outside of the athletic community. The NCAA put into play a policy that will allow student athletes to benefit financially from the name, image, or likeness. We took a proactive approach in designing a policy regarding these efforts. Each state, some states have different policies regarding the name, image, and likeness to protect the student athletes and protect some of the laws of the state. Some areas that, as we go through this, I'll highlight some of those areas, some of the do's and don'ts related to name, image, and likeness. So I'm just going to give you some information as to where we are right now and respond to the questions that you might have. Although our athletes will be educated in a very broad manner, some of the areas that we will emphasize are professional development in the area of brand management, business education, personal finance, entrepreneurship, and contracts. I won't go through verbatim on these slides, so since you have them, so if you have any questions about any particular areas, please don't hesitate to ask. The NCAA did provide some guidance in this area. They adopted adopted guidance governing student athletes in name, image, and likeness. They were prohibited, although they were given the opportunity to do this, they could not receive pay for play, which is very different. The student athlete would only be able to benefit from utilizing themselves, their image, or their likeness. I don't know if some of you have seen some of the things that have come across the media with student athletes. Although they're promoting themselves, and many athletes are utilizing the social media platforms to do this. So the university is not responsible for paying these student athletes. Companies sometimes reach out to the athlete and determine that they will benefit from utilizing that student athlete to enhance their product. The student athlete must follow the NCAA rules and the athletic policy. Student athletes, athletic staff, or other third parties must consult with the AAMU Athletic Compliance Office.
Next slide, please.
In utilizing name, image, and likeness, it is include but not limited to promoting their own business, endorsing a corporate entity, conducting camps, lessons, or clinics, making appearances, signing autographs. These are some of the areas that the student athlete can take advantage of. As I speak to student athletes, what I liken it to is a person that everyone's kind of familiar with is Chris Paul. Chris Paul is currently a professional athlete, and our athletes are almost considered professionals now. Chris Paul, as we all know, promotes State Farm. But Chris Paul, they're using Chris Paul, the person, as opposed to Chris Paul, the basketball player for the Phoenix Suns. As you can see, he never has anything related to the Phoenix Suns in any of his commercials. It's just Chris Paul. And when I talk to the athletes, we let them know that you're utilizing yourself. Although many of them think that the university comes into play sometimes. But we do have some athletes. We have about 4 athletes that are currently under contract. We have reviewed those contracts for our student athletes and advised them as we have to move forward how to read the fine print and what they should and should not do. And although the benefits that come along with it, there are some also responsibilities that come along with that financially that they have to adhere to in the fine print that we share with them. We encourage student athletes to utilize agents in this process so that someone is aware of those contracts and how they must engage with those companies. We also encourage student athletes to thoroughly vet any such agents within that process. The state of Alabama, all agents must be registered with the state of Alabama in order to engage student athletes. So we do partner with the state of Alabama and make sure that any agent that communicates with any of our athletes is registered with the state of Alabama as well. There are some restrictions that go along with name, image, and likeness. Student athletes must not use their NIL to promote gambling, alcohol products, tobacco products, adult entertainment, substances banned by the NCAA, or products or services that are illegal. And we have educated our student athletes at the beginning of the year when this policy started about these do's and don'ts related to NIL. We also inform the athletes that they cannot utilize any of the university's property in the process of doing so. If they choose to do this, they have to utilize university policy and procedures if they tend to want to utilize the university in any shape, form, or fashion during this process. That's a brief idea of what NIL is doing for student athletes at this time. Are there any particular questions that anyone may have?
Yes, I do.
Yes, sir.
What is the university doing to try to help the athletes identify potential support companies or entities? Are we actively working with foundation or alumni to try to help identify those resources?
Currently, and I'll let Mrs. Hicks speak to that as well. Currently, we have vetted some companies that want to come in and work with our athletes and serve as marketing agents to identify companies that may benefit them. We have some companies that have just contacted us recently that want to go on a 6-month trial contract with us and communicate with our athletes regarding the NIL and how it can benefit them to identify those companies that you speak to. Mr. Hicks, you want to answer that?
Those companies are not exclusive, right? You have multiple companies doing so bad.
Yes, yes, you can. Matter of fact, there was a show that I recommend if you can go back and look at it. Brian Gumble, on Real Sports HBO Max, did a show on this past Saturday. And identified student athletes that are taking advantage of this, but he also identified a university, a Brigham Young University, that they have one person who is serving as a representative for the entire football team. And he has a product that he is utilizing the entire football team to market his product. He's paying all of the student athletes on scholarship, and for the walk-on student athletes, he's paying for their entire tuition. And he is just a sportster. That's it, but he's doing the whole football team. Now, his goal is to utilize other universities, which is great. But there are other companies that can come in and utilize a different product, to your point, and the athletes can take advantage of that. But they also identify 2 young ladies that are currently freshmen who are about to go into, they're well over 6 figures in this NIL arena. So the opportunities are there. The athletes, we tell them, it kind of goes to what kind of social media following that you have, that companies will come in and be a part of that. But someone like the gentleman at Brigham Young University sees it as an advantage for him and his product to just do the entire program. So, any other questions for
My question is, NCAA approved all that?
Yes, sir. This is really become,
Open the door.
I mean, I'm sorry?
They opened the door.
Oh, for sure.
Have we engaged a consultant to help us maximize the opportunity for our student athletes? If not, we're not going to be competitive. Have we identified a consultant or some entity?
We've identified a company, as I mentioned, we've identified companies that want to come in and work with our athletes to identify.
So who's coordinating that? You are?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Myself and Mr. Yes, sir.
I don't mean to sound as if you are not suited to do that, but do we get another level of expertise to help enhance what you're doing?
I wouldn't think so, but if you want to.
I don't know your playground, so I don't.
So I guess what you're probably asking is that since the athletic department is already limited in staffing, there's challenges there. We all know that we could do a lot more if we had more hands and bodies. So I guess what we're saying is that, yes, there's one person, but the athletic program is big and it is a very competitive environment. Even high school players are now getting paid, right? They're becoming millionaires going into college. So where is Alabama A&M as it relates to, Jackson State University has taken advantage of that. Tennessee State has taken advantage of that. Are we going to lose our athletes to those institutions? And I think, and I'm not speaking for the chairman, but from what I'm reading on that is there additional support that you may need in order to make sure you have hands on ground and to make sure that we can recruit those type of students if we have something competitive, if they become an athlete at Alabama A&M?
So I think the companies that we're gonna bring in and talk with, from Comcast to Influencer, those are national recognized groups that will be able to assist us in that process. As it relates to the specific recruiting of the companies to do that, that's what they do. And they're the experts in the field, and they work with every institution. Obviously, we have to look at it and say it's a dollar and cents thing. We got to make sure it makes sense for us. As we stated, we have 4 student athletes for this impact right now. We have 4. So how do we get more? Do I think it's going to impact us in recruiting in our conference? Jackson State is an anomaly. And and you hear those things that are being said about it. So we have to be in front of it. I can't think of another school. I think Grambling just looked at one of the companies.
FAMU.
Yes, and FAMU. Both, we all looked at the same 3 companies, trying to, okay, who do we go in, who looks best, and making sure we get something unique for A&M as opposed to what they're doing for all of it. Because they try to blanket all the HBCUs in one realm, so.
Yeah,
Just trying to
I
make sure.
and I apologize if that's what it seemed like I was doing. I was just only mentioning a
other
couple of
schools.
institutions
Yeah.
that we know that are actively participating, right?
Yes.
So, yeah.
And to the point of that link, that's what these companies would do. They would come in with us, partner with our athletic department, and actively work with our student athletes. They would communicate directly with our student athletes and identify with the student athletes companies that can benefit them overall. So the company itself is benefiting because they're going to benefit from the actual business, and the student athlete would as well. So that's the layer that I can speak to the point that you're referring to help us out with that. Now, there's something so global, that's.
I'm speaking at another level. Who is going to evaluate the companies and bring those companies in and communicate with those at that 10,000 foot level? That's what I'm getting at. We don't want to be just like any other university that's competing. We want to be better than they are. We want to do more than they're doing. We want to be beyond what they are thinking.
Right, and know this, legislation has been complete, and it's very young, what it is doing. So you see many taking advantage of that. And so you look at us vetting and actually recruiting for the students, we have to be mindful to how that communication happens. Because currently the rules are not totally in place. So right now, everybody, like we said earlier, is just going for it. But next week, November 15th, the new constitution, we'll be working on the new constitution November 15th. So we'll get more competitive, get more understanding of what we need to do going forward. I'm convinced we'll be able to do that. And I don't think we'll be as competitive as any other school. Confident.
And a lot of that determines if your team wins, right?
Oh, yeah, you got to win some games.
If you're not winning, it really doesn't matter.
And it becomes a building a national brand.
Correct.
That's what I'm saying, a problem. Any other questions related to naming the companies?
I'm gonna ask one. The only question I think I have in terms of student athletes that forego trying to get big name brand and want to start their own particular brand, like Akil Glass, he started his own brand. Is he getting the education that he would need to, be able to market this brand and also benefit off of it while still being a student athlete? Is that education? That's just giving one example.
Yes. And that's very critical because, we could have, if the education's not there, we could have problems down the line as the Constitution get redone, issues out. So yes, we've had those. All right, thank you, Mr. Robertson. The, next we have, so I want to share with you guys the men's and women's basketball schedule. With the women's, we'll start with women's. We'll begin playing November 9th in Dayton. That's one of the guarantee games. We try to balance our schedule with guarantee games, obviously help us fiscally, but also competitively and giving our student athletes the opportunity to play against the best of the brightest and still be competitive in those games. So I think we've done a really good job of trying to identify those. We'll go to Dayton University where we get 15,000, and you'll see the difference in the men's and women's and the pay. University of Cincinnati, we get 18,000. University of Cincinnati head coach, and a lot of this is because prior relationships. So let me explain that to you. University of Cincinnati obviously was the coach that was with Coach Richards and myself at the University of Louisville. She's the head coach, Michelle Hurd, and we've played them the last 3 or 4 years, and that's been beneficial for us. And then we see the University of Nebraska, where Coach Richards is a graduate there, and they bring her back, take care of hotels, meals, and all, bring her back from there. So we'll be doing that, and you can see the beginning of our schedule. We're only at home one time, where we'll have a return game where we went to Georgia State last year. They'll come back to us this fall. And then we'll play the University of Missouri. Obviously, me coming from Missouri State, that was a direct relationship that we had, and we'll go to Columbia and attack on University of Missouri. So they have like $78,000 for them for this fall semester. And then in January, we'll be beginning conference play. On the men's side, next slide. men's slide, we began November 9th at home in Elmore against Tennessee State University. We renewed that rivalry year before last and continued that. Then we'll come back with Jacksonville State on the 13th, and then we'll go back to the University of Cincinnati again. We do 63,000 there, and that's low. Men's basketball prior to COVID, you were looking at 90,000 and to 95,000, and some of the ACCs to 100,000 play. And those are real good paydays along with the rooms and board. So we'll see that when we get out of this year, I imagine. Let's pray we get out there. But many schools came back on the coast due to COVID. So we'll have that, then we'll go right down the road. Trustee Wood will be down in Birmingham. I think you were the last time we was there. I think you were there. Trustee Gaines was there. Trustee Hackett was there. We'll be back there at UAB. Trustee Gaines, I guess your son won't be there this year, huh? Okay, he's gone. And then we'll go up to Western Kentucky for 60,000 in Bowling Green, and that's what we've done with them. Then we'll come back, get back in the north side. We have University of North Alabama. Sanford is a home and home. We typically do a home and home. We stayed on the road this year, preparing for. We want to move some of those games as by the time we get into the new event center. So we kind of like trying to get some really good games that we think is going to be beneficial for us as we prepare for down the road. Then we play Troy. So we stay within state, cutting down on our costs and been really good. And then we go to the Missouri Valley and we'll play Indiana State University of the program. Former Larry Bird, but we'll go to a tough place in Terre Haute, Indiana. I don't know if you guys ever been there. Tough place. But we'll go up there for that, and then we'll come back south, and we'll have Georgia Tech. And that'll be a fun game. Alumni do a really good job coming for that event, so we really look forward to that Georgia Tech game and do that. And we'll clear about 328,000 in men's basketball. And so, and then in January we will begin the conference play. And then finally, we have our new hires. We have Ms. Kalisa Stanfield come to us by way of University of Arkansas Monticello. She is not here. She's on campus. We're preparing for. We host the SWAC volleyball championships in a couple of weeks. And then we have Edward Everton, came by Delaware State. He's Assistant Director of Compliance. Teresa Moore, Assistant Sports Information Director. Emmanuel Thomas, South Alabama, Assistant Basketball Coach. Johnny Williams from Texas Southern University, Assistant Basketball Coach. Tamika Kitchen, before coming here, she was at Dr. Williams, Fort Valley. She was at Fort Valley. And then we had Ken DeBoer, defensive tackles coach, Carlos Fields, defensive ends coach, LG Herb, defensive graduate assistant, and then Jamie Fleming, who's our assistant volleyball coach. So that's the staff that we currently have in place. We're looking forward to a really good spring. We're just trying to stay safe, get ready, and looking forward to the remaining of this football season. Take care of what we got to take care of.
Right.
Yes, sir.
If you would, because of so much feedback, me and us got after homecoming, I want to give you an opportunity just to reiterate. Dr. Houdini did a great job in sending an email out to the trustees, informing us of the challenges and some of the things that resulted in the experience that we had during the homecoming. But if there's anything else you want to add to that or reiterate for us, this would be the time to do so.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the crowd itself and the travel and the buses and from COVID to all those things compacted at one time. Not being able to utilize the vast major roads that we typically use created impact, and we kind of thought it would, and we prepared and tried to get most of it. But it was the most attended game we've ever had here at Alabama, across the board. Does not take away what we want to do as far as the service and the support to do that. So we prepared and looked at different ways, and obviously once the event center is completed, taking a look at that, the structure, getting with the group, and spending time with looking at what works best with us. I will tell you there's some things that I think we will be investing. Once we get through our audit and get prepared to next year, we're going to be looking at a new ticketing system. All those things, we got to be, consistent with that because we don't want to be in between systems and not have actual records, so that's critical. But we're feeling really good about what we can do, what we will do. There was, if you've been following, you bring up the things that you said were most difficult, but you look across our league and see all the challenges that we did not have. Thank God. I had a soccer team in Grambling that I get a call at 4:30 in the morning that we had to stop. We had to come back home through shooting, deaths. We had something at Jackson State and across the landscape. We've been fortunate enough. I think there was only one arrest through that weekend. So we're really fortunate. That's on the bright side. So that's the stage trip, but there's some things that we definitely need to address as it relates to spacing, facility inside the suite area, and those type of things. And we got the notes, and we're on it. We're on it. So we hope that as we wrap up this year, we'll get a chance to take a look at this and maybe come back to you guys and say these are some of the changes that we made to improve that experience.
I've not been to a game this year, but are we doing a ticketing mobile device as well as using that app to enter the stadium?
Yes, sir. For those that use it, we have a group that technology is not the favorite, But some of our younger are utilizing it, but a vast majority of ours want to come up to the counter. They want to talk to you. They want to carry on 30 minutes with you and then find out what's happening for the next game. But we're working on it, and we're going to have to do our due diligence because obviously when we go to this new event center, that's not how we want to do our business. So we're going to really ramp up and talk with our alumni and people alike that technology will be the way that we need to go. And we're just going to have to. So when they call you and complain about that, no, that's got to be the way for us to enter the 21st century. It's got to be.
Hey,
Yes.
I want to applaud you on your numbers as it relates to athletes who are vaccinated. But my question is, have you gauged what the reason is for the hesitancy on those that are not?
Yeah. So many of them been from, hey, I'm unsure, not comfortable, religious. We've had, I know they contacted Attorney Deborah, give the religious exemptions, state those, and the parents probably didn't encourage it. And it's interesting, I think geographically, they've been across the board too. Our kids from the West Coast, I think there's a couple that decided not to, and they're just a bit hesitant. We did have someone that felt like that they heard someone and taken the shot, got ill. So it's been across the board for those that didn't get it or don't want to. So we just got to educate them and bring different individuals from Huntsville Hospital to just talk with them. Our coaches talk about it, and we try to just do as much education with them to kind of like eliminate any fears or just prepare them the next steps for whether if they don't do that, what they need to do going forward. So, and try to keep them safe as possible.
I just got a question. I think your rates in comparison to most athletic programs, I think we're at the top of the percentile of our athletes, and I think you should be commended and your staff for that. So my question is and I'm not sure if you've already answered it, during game day, and the logistics of, the traffic, do we hire an outside agency, or is that something that, Earmark does, or is that something we do in-house?
That was in-house, but we do have Huntsville Police, so you have DPS on campus, Huntsville Police, and I think they utilize the county and sheriff. So it was like 3 different entities this year. And so I think there was some confusion for those that came from the outside that wasn't accustomed to the traffic patterns and the way maybe DPS might have brought some people in. So I do recall an incident where when you got in front of the wellness center right there in the region, there was like a big log, but they were sending them straight to the wellness center when the pattern was for them to go down and go to Elementary Mason. And so I think there was some communication gaps in there. I think Captain Hightower and Chief Captain Rubin will be able to speak, exactly what it was, but there's 2 municipalities that were doing it, though. Huntsville Police and Department of Public Safety. So, but that might be something we need to look into.
That's the only thing I was just gonna say, just
Yeah.
kind of maybe look into, even if we have to hire an outside logistics person, and just make sure that everyone is coordinated when you have all these different entities. I'm sure you've had those meetings prior, but just to kind of reiterate, because on the actual day of the game, it gets to be a little crazy. Nobody can find anyone, so it's just, just wanted to, to mention that, but I think that, for us to get through that entire week, there's only one way out, and to have no crimes, it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
There is one action item for athletics that's not on the agenda. But I'm sure that Mr. Hicks realizes what that action item is. It takes place on Saturday.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Very much noted. Very much noted.
That was easy.
Yes, it was easy.
Did you think you were going to leave here without addressing that?
Yes, we do have an event on Saturday at 2:30 p.m. We have to take care of,
That's the action item.
yeah, that's the action item.
Be
A
specific.
little football game at 2:30.
Is that a guarantee?
Oh, sorry. You know I don't give out guarantees. You know I don't give guarantees. But we will be prepared. We're ready to go.
Yeah, I just want to say one other thing. I just want to commend you, Mr. Hicks, and your staff for the rings that you provided for the football players, the quality in which they were designed and how they were executed. It's very professional. It's also mimics those of the University of Alabama. So I just want to say thank you for making sure you rewarded our players through a way that magnified a huge significance of their accomplishments. So again, thank you for that.
And for those of you who have not received it, I got you. They're coming. They're coming. We did have an issue with diamonds on a few in the process, so they've been corrected. We should be getting some, and you don't have to worry about it. I'm going to give them to you personally. No matter where your location is.
That means you do have mine, correct?
Yes, we got you. No matter where your location is, I'm going to take care of it personally. It's on record. All right.
I thought you didn't give guarantees, though.
I can get it myself.
He's still,
And you have to let me know when you come, so I can get you an escort out the interstate. Or she coming personally. Escorted in the temple. And probably escorted out.
I know he's talking about the council, I just.
Make sure I get mine today.
Thank you,
You got yours, you got
I want the other two. Look, I ain't even here no more. I'm here.
I had Joffrey. Joffrey called me about it. Yes, he did. Joffrey called me about this for me. Thank you.
we are ahead of schedule and tomorrow's gonna be a very busy day. So if we can move ahead and get information technology out of the way today, we're about a half hour ahead of schedule. And if we can do that, that'll make our day less taxing tomorrow. That's okay with you, Trustee Rice? That'll permit us to, not be as pressed tomorrow when we got those other midday commitments. Dr. Nash, thank you for stepping up.
Thank you, Dr. Nance. Would you go ahead now? As soon as they get it up.
What's going on first? The money.
See who I can read this.
Small code gains property.
All right, good afternoon. So the first action item, well, the only action item IT has is we're asking for approval to enter into an MOU. An MOU with the North Alabama Railroad Museum. So, advance for me, please. So as part of our infrastructure and internet expansion, we are extending fiber from the campus to the Aggregation Center on Chase Road. And so we found out in this process that we own most of the property between Alabama A&M and the Aggregation Center, except a small piece of land. If you can expand to the next slide, please. A small piece of land that connects that's in between the Railroad Museum and Chase Road. So we are asking to enter into an MOU with the Alabama Railroad System in order to, so we don't have to get into it with Huntsville Utilities and go through that process of requesting to have right of way to that money. And so what we're going to do is we're going to run, you can go to the next slide and see. Okay, go one more. So I don't know if you can see it, but there is a little piece. So we're going to, where our property ends, we're going to take a piece of fiber and make it aerial. So it's gonna come off the pole on Alabama A&M's land to the Railroad Museum and then extend from there out to the farm.
Is that old building back, way back in the back and go Chase Road?
It is, so if you go back to the picture, so go back to the one. So it's this, so there are two buildings on the property. This is their main administrative building. And so we're just gonna bring, so if you can see that pole, there's a pole in the back and there's one in front, so we're just gonna extend it from that pole to the museum. They have, it's a small building, they have about 2 computers in there, and we're gonna actually bring it, a 10 gig to the building and actually, connect everything inside and then provide an internet.
Okay, so the action item is to enter into MOU with the Railroad Museum. Chair, entertain a motion at this time.
Chairman, I move that we, per the request of Senator Reed with Alabama A&M University and the North Alabama Railroad Museum.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been moved and properly second. Ready for question? All those in favor, sign of aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Go ahead.
So next we have a short informational slide. So if any of you don't know, this is National Cybersecurity Month. October's been designated National Cybersecurity Month by the NSA. and the FBI and the White House. So this is an initiative that occurs every month of October. So today I just want to take a few minutes to talk to you about A&M security posture, where we are today. So as many of you have heard, there have been several security incidents that happened at several schools, and they have been very costly and expensive. And so South Carolina was the last one that we heard about. We don't quite know what happened, if it was internal or if it was malicious act. Their website is back up as of this week, but as of last week, that incident hasn't been resolved. Huntsville City Schools also had an incident where they had a malicious act that occurred, and their students were not only virtual, but they had a cybersecurity incident that happened on top of that. So they had to go back to paper and put them behind a little bit, and it was very costly. And so they had to end up paying cybersecurity, they had to pay for security monitoring for their students because some of their students' socials and some of their parents' information got out as well. So we just want to kind of focus on how do we strengthen our security posture at Alabama A&M. Next slide. So this month's theme is Be Cyber Smart. And so what we're doing on campus, you can advance on. So what we are doing on campus is, some of you were familiar that for Dr. Parkville, we were using a two-factor authentication where you had to authenticate on your device or phone using a password. So using passwords is a security risk, right? Because people forget passwords, we put it under our desk, we do different things with passwords. So to take that up a notch, we just went passwords. So now users on campus do not have to use a password to get into our single sign-on system that has all of our applications. So this password solution has stepped up our security another notch. So the company that we went with is called Secret Double Octopus. And so a lot of people are, I don't know where that name comes. It stands for multi-factor authentication, where you can get into your different devices multiple ways. Next. So this is just a screenshot of kind of what it looks like. Some of you have been moved over, but most people are put in bypass mode just to make it easier to get access to your A&M credentials. So you can access this from an iPad, laptop, cell phone, or any way to get access to your devices. Go to the next slide. And this is just a picture showing how you approve it on your phone and how it gains you access to your application. So a second security measure that we've implemented is called EduRoam. And so EduRoam stands for Educational Roaming Network. And so the good thing about this is if another university has EduRoam, you can go to that university and get on their internet based on your credentials from Alabama A&M. And so this is a high-speed connection that is secure and private through internet tube. If you're not familiar with it, it's an educational network around the country. And so we just joined that network, and so now we are on a high-speed network on campus that we can go to other universities and use and be safe and protected with. Next slide. So with all that said, this is just a quote that came from Cybersecurity Month. So no matter how many security postures and procedures and policies we put in place, the human is the catalyst, correct? So if you go to the next slide, so she says that humans are our biggest threat. And so even with all this we put in, we want to be aware that we still have to put procedures and applications in place. And this just kind of shows like how much we spend on security. I think the finance department for helping us out with this endeavor. And so that line item in yellow is something that is a total solution. So we've been kind of looking at different applications and different platforms to try to see what works best for us. And so when you look at that number, it looks large, but if you go back to that first slide to show where people were paying 1.2 million and 3 million to pay for monitoring, this is a small amount versus being called a security breach. So we are diligently working to improve our security posture. We're spending a lot of money on applications and software. We will try to work to, minimize and collaborate to find applications that are conducive to strengthen our security posture. So our student laptop initiative, I can't see that, but we have given out 3,534 laptops to on-campus students, and we have mailed 200 out of them, okay? So we have another 3,000 coming. We keep them in a container. We have another 3,000 that we can start giving out in January.
Each student, just if they're enrolled, get a laptop?
Every student.
Are there any questions for Dr. Mack? If not, thank you, Dr. Mack.
Thank you. Unless there's some comments or whatever, this will conclude our first day of committee meetings. We'll meet tomorrow at 8:30 and begin with Trustee Johnson Cole and governance. So, if there's nothing else, see you tomorrow morning. All right.
Good morning.
Yeah.